Lincolnshire's quiet villages and grand halls hide darker stories, from spectral nuns and haunted hospitals to shadowed pubs and gardens. These 10 places hold eerie legends and restless spirits. Nocton Hall, hidden deep in the quiet lanes of Lincolnshire, the ruined shell of Nocton Hall still carries a reputation that makes even seasoned ghost hunters pause at its gates. Built in the 19th century and later used as a military hospital during 2 world wars, the great house was finally gutted by fire. Today, only scorched walls and lonely trees remain, yet local memory insists that something of its past still lingers. The most persistent legend centers on a young servant girl who worked here when the hall was at its grandest. According to long-told accounts, she became pregnant after a brutal assault by the owner's son. Overwhelmed by despair, she is said to have ended her life within the house. For decades afterwards, guests and staff described a figure in grey moving along the upper corridors and into a particular bedroom. Always around 4:30 in the morning, the door would creak open and the faint sound of a woman mumbling filled the dark. Some claimed to hear her weeping or whispering words no one could quite catch, as if still trying to tell her story. Soldiers billeted here during wartime spoke of cold drafts and soft footfalls when they were alone on night duty. Nurses reported waking to find a shadow at the end of their bed that dissolved into the moonlight. One officer, writing in his diary, described following the sound of quiet sobbing to an empty, fire-blackened room and feeling the sudden scent of old lavender before the silence closed again. Though the hall is now a ruin fenced for safety, modern visitors sometimes speak of the same unease, a prickling at the back of the neck, a sense that someone watches from an upper window that no longer exists. Photographers have captured curious mists shaped like a cloaked figure, and ghost hunters still report unexplained electronic readings near the old servants' quarters. Whether these moments are echoes of a tragic servant or the hall itself holding on to memory, Nocton's desolate shell keeps its secrets well. To stand amid the fallen stones at dawn, when the first birds are silent and the mist curls low, is to feel that the story of the Grey Lady is not yet finished, and that her sorrow still drifts through the Lincolnshire air. The Vedanta, set among peaceful trees on the edge of Branston, the grand building now known as the Vedanta hides a past that unsettles even seasoned visitors. Once Branston Hall, this 19th century country house, became a fashionable hotel in the early 20th century, where elegant dancers filled the ballroom and jazz spilled late into the night. Yet long after the music stopped, sounds of that lost age seem to linger in the walls. Night staff have described a sudden burst of lively 1920s jazz drifting through the main staircase when no event was scheduled and no musicians were present. The music fades as abruptly as it starts, leaving only an empty hall and a faint scent of cigar smoke. Some guests have woken to the echo of clinking glasses and laughter that vanish as they rise from bed. Beneath these festive echoes lies a more sorrowful legend. Years ago, a weeping woman was heard on the grand stairway, her sobs soft but piercing enough to freeze those nearby. No source was ever found. Locals whisper of a heartbroken hostess who once lived here, a woman who waited in vain for a lover who never returned from war. Her grief, it is said, may have woven itself into the fabric of the house, replaying as soft lament on quiet nights. Caretakers recount lights flicking on in empty rooms and doors left firmly latched, swinging open without sound. One former manager recalled securing the ballroom after a wedding only to find every chair rearranged into a perfect circle by morning. Another reported seeing a hazy female outline glide down the main stairs just as the phantom jazz began to play. Today, the Vedanta is a serene retreat, yet the past refuses to sleep. Guests sometimes pause on the staircase at night, unsure whether the faint rhythm beneath their feet is their own heartbeat or a distant Charleston tune from a century ago. Whether the house simply holds the memory of laughter and heartbreak or something less easily explained, its walls remain quietly alive, turning each late-night creak into a lingering note from another time. The Jolly Brewer, tucked along Broadgate in historic Lincoln. The Jolly Brewer is a friendly pub with a long memory. Its sign and name have changed over the decades, briefly becoming Bentley's Bar before returning to its original identity. But one thing has never left: the strange voice that calls out across the bar long after closing time. Former landlords tell of locking up for the night, only to hear their own names shouted clearly from the empty cellar. Bartenders have described a sudden whisper at their ear when no one was near, or the unmistakable sound of a stool scraping across the floor when every chair had already been stacked. One veteran manager swears he heard someone call the pub's full name aloud, the Jolly Brewer, with the warm gusto of an old regular, even though the building was silent and secured. Some locals think the voice belongs to a devoted patron from years past, unwilling to let go of his favorite haunt. Others link it to a cheerful former landlord, known for calling his staff by name in a booming greeting. There are stories of invisible hands tugging lightly at a sleeve, or the brief waft of pipe smoke that vanishes as quickly as it comes, adding to the sense that friendly company is never far away. Occasionally, visiting musicians packing up late at night have reported a soft humming that blends perfectly with the music they just finished, as though an unseen audience refuses to let the evening end. Security cameras have captured faint orbs and sudden flickers of light near the old timber beams, but nothing solid enough to explain the phenomena. Today, the Jolly Brewer welcomes guests with laughter and live music, but regulars will tell you that the place feels different after midnight. The low ceilings seem to hold a memory of past nights, and the air carries a faint vibration like the last note of a song. Whether it is the spirit of a loyal customer or simply the building itself, remembering its lively past, the Jolly Brewer remains a pub where the party never fully stops and where a ghostly voice still raises a toast from time to time. County Assembly Rooms. Standing proudly on Bailgate, near the ancient heart of Lincoln, the County Assembly Rooms has long been a place for gatherings and grand events. Built in the 18th century, its elegant halls once echoed with music and debate, yet beneath the refined surface lie stories of persistent and curious hauntings that still stir today. Caretakers and staff speak of unsettling sounds from the basement when the building is empty. Heavy furniture seems to scrape across the floor with no one below to move it. Doors that were locked at closing have been found wide open at dawn, and lights flick on by themselves as if an unseen guest is making their way through the rooms. Some report the cold, unmistakable sensation of a hand brushing against their shoulder when no living soul is near. One of the most vivid figures described is a tall man dressed in old Cavalier-style clothing, complete with sweeping cloak and plumed hat. He has been glimpsed standing silently in shadowed corners or drifting along the upper galleries. Guests have also reported faint voices rising from deserted chambers and sudden footsteps on the grand staircase, as though a long-finished dance were beginning again. A former manager once recounted how, while locking up late one winter night, he heard an urgent knock behind a basement door. Expecting a straggler, he opened it to nothing but a wave of icy air. Another evening, musicians rehearsing for a concert stopped mid-song when the heavy ballroom doors swung open without a sound or draft to explain it. Legends vary, about who the spectral cavalier might be. Some whisper of a 17th century royalist who sought refuge here and never left. Others imagine a loyal servant, ensuring that centuries of festivities continue undisturbed. Whatever the truth, the building's layered history, from elegant assemblies to secret wartime meetings, has left a residue of restless energy. Even in daylight, the county assembly rooms holds a quiet charge, but at night, the creak of the staircase or the sudden click of a latch can make the most rational visitor pause. It remains one of Lincolnshire's most atmospheric sites, where the elegance of the past mingles with the lingering presence of those who may still wish to attend the eternal dance. Diana, Princess of Wales Hospital. Behind the busy wards and modern facades of this large hospital lies a reputation for quiet, persistent hauntings. Long before it was named for the late Princess of Wales, this site was home to an older infirmary dating back to the 19th century. Some believe the echoes of those early years have never truly faded. Nurses working night shifts describe sudden cold patches that drift through sealed corridors, or the faint scent of carbolic soap, common in Victorian hospitals, appearing from nowhere. Call buzzers are known to sound from empty rooms, and trolleys have been found moved across polished floors without a hand to guide them. Security staff, making their rounds, speak of muffled footsteps ahead of them that stop abruptly when followed. The most famous apparition is a spectral matron, always dressed in a long black gown, with a crisp white apron, as if she has just stepped from the pages of an old ward journal. Several staff members have glimpsed her gliding along dimly lit hallways, particularly near the older wings that once formed part of the original infirmary. Some report that she appears to pause at patient bedsides, adjusting sheets or leaning in as if to check a pulse before vanishing without a sound. One night, Porter recalled feeling a soft tug at his sleeve while alone in the service corridor. Turning quickly, he saw only a faint shimmer in the air and the retreating echo of footsteps on tiles. Another nurse swore she felt a reassuring pat on the shoulder as she administered medicine, only to find the room empty. Many believe this kindly presence is the matron continuing her rounds to comfort the sick even in death. Though the hospital today is a place of science and modern care, it seems to carry an older heartbeat. Visitors sometimes speak of a hush that settles suddenly in certain wards, as though unseen eyes are still watching over patients. Whether a trick of memory residual energy or the devoted spirit of a long-departed caregiver, the matron of Grimsby reminds all who enter that compassion and mystery can endure beyond a lifetime. St. Peter's at Vincula Church. Tucked away along a quiet lane in Bottisford stands St. Peter's at Vincula Church, a medieval stone sanctuary whose name means St. Peter in chains. At first glance, it seems peaceful, framed by weathered headstones and whispering trees. Yet visitors soon discover that its stillness holds an eerie secret. For generations, local folklore has warned of a grave that will not keep silent. According to legend, if one kneels by the old headstone that once bore iron railings and presses an ear to the cool stone, a faint but unmistakable sound emerges, the soft metallic clink of chains rattling deep within the earth. Some say it is the soul of a restless prisoner seeking release. Others believe it to be a penitent spirit bound for eternity. Late-night walkers tell of cold air pooling suddenly around the churchyard, even on warm summer evenings, as though something unseen is drawing near. A former verger recounted how, while locking the gate at dusk, he heard a measured dragging across gravel behind him. Turning quickly, he saw only the ancient yews swaying in a windless hush. Inside the church, the atmosphere can feel just as heavy. The nave carries faint echoes of footsteps that never arrive, and candles have been known to flicker violently without a draught. Some parishioners whisper that the original railings around the mysterious grave were meant to bind not just the body, but the spirit beneath. One story speaks of a 17th century prisoner condemned for treason whose last request was burial within holy ground, but whose crimes denied him peace. Others imagine a monk punished for forbidden rites, forever chained to the spot where he sought forgiveness. Whatever the truth, the quiet jangle beneath the stone seems to defy time. By day, St. Peter's at Vincula remains a place of worship and history. Yet as twilight settles and the churchyard grows dim, many feel that the past begins to stir. Whether it is the echo of chains or the weight of legend, this Bottisford church keeps a secret that refuses to rest. Grimsby Institute, where students now hurry between modern classrooms and older presence, seems to linger. The Grimsby Institute stands on land once occupied by a quiet convent, and many believe the spirits of those long-gone nuns still walk the grounds. Security staff, making late-night patrols, report footsteps that echo in empty corridors, always just ahead, yet never caught. Cleaning crews have found doors swinging gently, though every window is shut tight, and motion sensors occasionally trigger alarms when no one is inside. A faint scent of beeswax polish and candle smoke, sense of a vanished chapel, sometimes drifts through the halls without warning. The most repeated stories concern the nuns walk the roundabout nearby that once formed part of the convent's garden path. Motorists speak of a fleeting figure in a dark habit, crossing the road in the beam of headlights only to dissolve into the night air. One taxi driver recounted braking hard as a veiled woman appeared before his car. When he stepped out, the street lay empty and silent. Some students tell of late evening study sessions when they felt the brush of fabric on their shoulder or heard soft Latin hymns echoing faintly from the stairwell. A lecturer working alone described a sudden peaceful stillness followed by the vision of a pale, serene face in an upstairs window, watching and then fading. Local historians note that the original convent was a place of strict devotion where sisters devoted their lives to prayer and teaching. When the building was demolished, it seems that memory or something deeper refused to leave. Whether these encounters are the product of imagination, stirred by history, or genuine glimpses of the past, the effect is the same, a sense that the nuns remain guardians of their once sacred ground. By daylight, the institute bustles with modern life, yet as darkness gathers, a different quiet settles in. The whispered chants, the fleeting figures, and the gentle touch of unseen hands remind all who pass that some forms of devotion may outlast stone, and centuries keeping the old convent alive in shadow and silence. Scunthorpe Steelworks. Among the vast furnaces and echoing catwalks of Scunthorpe Steelworks, a shadowed figure is said to keep silent watch. Generations of steelworkers have shared tales of strange encounters deep within this industrial maze, where the clang of metal and the hiss of steam mingle with something older and more mysterious. The Boss Plant. A core area of the works is where many of the stories begin. Night shift crews sometimes glimpse a tall, indistinct shape at the edge of their vision, standing utterly still amid the glow of molten steel. When they turn for a clearer look, the figure is gone, leaving only the throb of machinery and a sudden drop in temperature. Tools set down carefully may be found moved across the floor minutes later as if nudged by unseen hands. Perhaps the most unsettling reports come from the 6th floor walkway. This high, narrow path already challenges the nerves with its dizzying views of the furnaces below. Workers describe hearing footsteps matching their own, a steady tread that seems to follow but never overtake. Some have stopped, mid-bridge, convinced someone is behind them, only to face an empty expanse. One veteran recalls a whisper, too soft to catch words, brushing past his ear as he crossed the span. Historians point out that the steelworks were built upon older ground, a place where earlier industries rose and fell and where accidents were once grimly common. Some suspect the restless figure could be a former worker who met a tragic end, unwilling to leave the site that defined his life. Others wonder if something even older lies beneath, awakened by centuries of heavy labor and fire. Today, the Scunthorpe Steelworks remains vital and loud with production, yet in certain corners, the atmosphere thickens into something more than industrial haze. As the furnaces pulse and the girders hum with heat, those who walk the boss plant or the 6th floor at night still speak of a quiet companion unseen, unyielding, and as much a part of the steel as the iron ore itself. Normanby Hall, set among peaceful parkland near Scunthorpe Normanby Hall, welcomes visitors with grand gardens and a stately house rich in Georgian elegance. Yet after dusk, a different story unfolds, one rooted in violence and guilt that seems unwilling to fade. The hall and its grounds are said to be haunted by a figure known as Humphrey, a man whose life ended brutally centuries ago. According to local tradition, Humphrey was caught stealing game in the surrounding estate during the 18th or early 19th century. Poaching was a serious crime in those days, and the estate's gamekeepers were known to deal harshly with offenders. One winter night, they set upon Humphrey with a savagery meant to serve as a warning. He was beaten to death near the walled garden, his body left where it fell. Since then, countless visitors and staff have spoken of a male presence roaming the estate. A tall, broad-shouldered man in rustic clothes is glimpsed on the old railway path in the farming museum, or pacing the walled garden where the fatal attack is believed to have taken place. His boots are said to crunch on gravel that no longer exists, and his shadow sometimes stretches unnaturally long under the moonlight before fading entirely. Gardeners locking up for the night describe the sense of someone walking close behind, only to turn and find emptiness. Others speak of sudden icy blasts of air on warm evenings, or the smell of damp earth and wood smoke appearing without cause. In the quiet of the museum, an occasional sharp knock echoes through rooms where no visitor stands. Some who claim to have seen Humphrey insist he is not hostile but mournful, doomed to replay the last restless patrol of his life. Others feel a prickling unease, as though the injustice of that winter night has left him angry still. By day, Normanby Hall is a picture of calm heritage, but when evening mist gathers around the old garden walls, the story of Humphrey returns. Whether one views him as a tragic soul or a warning from the past, his silent watch ensures that the hall's elegant grounds remain tied to a darker memory. Bardney Abbey. In a quiet corner of Lincolnshire stand the haunting ruins of Bardney Abbey, once a proud Benedictine monastery founded more than 1,000 years ago. By day, its moss-clad stones and empty arches seem merely picturesque, but by night, the place takes on an unsettling life of its own. For generations, locals have whispered that something ancient still stirs among the fallen walls. The most startling tale concerns a pile of bones that is said to lie hidden among the shattered masonry. On moonlit nights, when mist drifts up from the surrounding fields, these bones are rumored to rise and reassemble themselves into a grotesque dancing skeleton. Eyewitnesses claim to have seen a figure of bleached bone step forward from the shadowed chancel, spinning and bowing as though in some eerie ritual. No sooner is it glimpsed than it collapses once more into a silent heap, leaving no trace but a strange ringing echo that hangs in the cold night air. Some historians link this legend to the abbey's turbulent past. Bardney was dissolved in the 16th century under Henry VIII, its monks driven out, and its relics scattered. Others go further back to the Viking raids that once swept through these marshes, when warriors and monks alike were cut down and their remains left unburied. Perhaps so the stories suggest the restless bones belong to those whose souls were never given peace. Modern visitors describe a powerful atmosphere as dusk falls, sudden cold patches, the sound of faint chanting on a windless night, and the uncanny sense of being watched from the broken arches overhead. Some have even heard the sharp clatter of bones against stone just out of sight, as if something is slowly rebuilding itself in the darkness. Whether the dancing skeleton is the restless spirit of a slaughtered monk, a fragment of ancient pagan ritual, or simply the echo of centuries of violence and devotion, Bardney Abbey remains one of Lincolnshire's most unnerving ruins. To walk here beneath the moon is to feel history breathing close by, and to wonder if the next step will bring the rattle of bones to life once again. Which of these haunted Lincolnshire sites would you dare to visit after dark? Share your ghostly thoughts in the comments and subscribe to Creepy Experience for more chilling journeys.